sign in the back. There we go. That's a pretty good shot of you guys. Oh, hi everybody. Let me move it back this way. Got the camera here. Welcome to cinema, where we're doing something sort of odd here. Can we put me on this screen up here too? Getting there? Almost. Can't put me on that screen? Only that stuff? Okay. I wanted to see what would happen if I put me on TV, on camera. That's kind of an interesting shot. I can wave to myself. This is for my students for later. We're doing video production. We have to put some stuff into the computer. So here, and I'll get a shot of you guys. Wait, let's stop that one. Good. Get another one. Oh, I can't get the whole class in there though. We'll zoom out. Get you in focus. Looking pretty good. Okay, you guys wave to everybody in video production. All right, I like it. Okay, so yeah, we're on live TV now, messing around. Today's kind of an interesting, exciting day because we have Big Tent Day here on campus. And what that means is there's two big tents outside. It should be called Big Tents Day, now that I realize it, because there's two of them. And they have free food out there, and they also have a lot of local organizations that could be good support for you, as well as campus organizations that could be good support for you, whether you have a health issue or a psychological issue or an academic issue or personal issue. We do have a lot of assistance for you, and that's a good way to find out about some of those services. In addition to that, there are a number of employers out there with opportunities for jobs. Everything I saw from local law enforcement organizations to national law enforcement organizations. Saw the FBI is out there. And then I saw numerous health organizations looking for future employees. City of Tulsa, jobs with the fire department, jobs with the sheriff's department. There's all kinds of things out there. Plus just a lot of student things, Student Broadcasting Organization, the Native American Student Association, the, what else did I see out there? Just other clubs. And so it's a really good opportunity to learn about what's happening on campus. And the nice thing about right now is it's starting to feel like a college campus again. Of course, we went through the pandemic era, which was a couple of years of hardly anybody being here, it seemed like. Last year, everybody was kind of cautiously moving back in here. And now it feels like we're able to be kind of how we used to be, which is nice. And it's also nice to have a student population on campus. Of course, we know we have a lot of online courses here. This is a distance ed class. Our online and distance ed enrollment, as it is around the country with schools that have distance ed, is way up. People, now that the pandemic has happened and everybody's gotten used to being able to take their classes on their laptop or their whatever their device is, I don't think we'll ever be able to go back. But there are some students who I think appreciate being in a class with a teacher and being able to listen to somebody. So that being said, I think it is important for us all to think in terms of the PTSD we probably all have that we don't even know we have from the pandemic, all the crazy stuff that happened in that era, and some sad things that happened. I mean, personally, I know, not to be morose or anything, but I think I was up to, maybe it's 12 people that I personally knew who died of COVID. Not to get into an argument of them having any health condition that COVID exacerbated, but the fact is they got COVID and died. And so it was serious business for me personally. And because of my family and communities seemed to hit us a little bit harder. So we keep looking at that. Oh, there's another variant coming on, there's another shot coming on. You make your own decisions about all that. We do know some COVID case admittance around the country is up with this new variant. But what does that really mean? People who haven't been vaccinated? I don't know. This isn't really the class about that. Although when we get toward the end of the semester and when we get to documentary, we talk about documentary films. Can you believe a documentary? Is a documentary a verifiable source of information? What do you need to know to determine if a documentary is a verifiable source of information? Most likely, who made it? Because whoever makes it is going to have a particular predisposition and they are going to slant that documentary in the direction that they want to get their point across. So we'll be talking about that in the second half of the class. Today what we want to do is warm you up to what's going to happen in here, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the course as a whole, and then we'll jump right into the lesson of the day, which I introduced on Monday, which was narrative structure, which really is something that comes right out of your high school English classes and is a very old concept, but we're going to apply it to films as well. I mentioned that we are here on Friday, and so we do meet. Come on in. We do meet on Fridays. You don't have to necessarily be here. I consider it a video day where I'm either showing the rest or some more of the film that we started through the week. I don't always show complete films in here for a couple reasons. One is copyright reasons, but we do have permission and have paid to use a few films that I can show in their entirety. So in those situations, on a Monday and a Wednesday, we might get through most of the film, and then on Friday, I may just show the rest. So you could watch it online. But I typically don't post those videos online of that class. I typically will only post a video where I'm sure the copyrights are clear. So for example, on Monday, I talked, and I showed three or four trailers from YouTube. Well, I posted that video to YouTube and linked it for my other classes so they could see an introduction to the course, which I'll do today as well. I wasn't worried about that because those are YouTube videos going back on YouTube, and I'm not monetizing it. If you're not, I was talking to my video production students about this. If you are interested in monetizing the internet, it's there, just waiting for you. You just have to have a good idea. And YouTube makes it pretty easy if you have an idea and a particular segment of audience you're going for to monetize that. What's that mean? It means you connect it to your bank account, and then you upload videos, and you say, you know, what it is and all that, and they put a commercial in front of it. So when you go to YouTube and you see a commercial in front of a video that you want to watch, it's annoying and you want to skip through, but somebody gets credit for that. And there's a little money that happens as a result of that from your eyeballs being on it. They get a little bit more, we get a little bit more money if your eyeballs stay there longer. But that's what we call an impression in the digital media business. So I've put a lot of videos up, and I shoot a lot of video and edit video and stuff, but I do a lot that's copyrighted, so I can't monetize everything. You can only monetize something that you generate the content for, or you're making a video of a public event where a person does not have a right to privacy because they are in the public environment. A parade, football game, you know, day in the park, whatever. You give up your privacy as soon as you walk out of your door. And so when you walk up, if somebody's got a video camera in public, and you've probably seen this many times, you can tell them to stop, or you prefer that they don't stop, but you actually can't make them stop. Why? Because you're in the public, and you give up your right to privacy once you're in public. They can't come in your house and video you, but as soon as you walk out your door on the street, they can. So I won't get into all those things, but if you do start making videos and trying to monetize them, it can be a little extra cash. Everything's expensive these days, so it's nice to have a little bit of extra money coming in. Let's see, my last Google check was for $116 and some change. And I think that they only pay you if you get up to $100 or more. And it takes me usually 2 or 3 months to get up there because I have a lot of music videos, I have a lot of football videos, and other things that I do that get people to click in. I've been doing it for a long time, and as a result of that, I've amassed several videos. And so, make a little extra cash that way. And it's an interesting part of all that. Related to cinema, it is shooting and editing and posting, target audience, who are you trying to reach, all of that. And what you do is, as I mentioned, you connect it to your bank account. So you enter your bank information, that money just goes there. So what happens after I'm dead? What happens to that money? Yeah, it's a question, right? So you set up a trust of some type or another that essentially that money continues funneling into, and then whoever the beneficiaries are of your trust get that money when it comes out. So it really is an eternal source of revenue for somebody. But eventually, when you're dead, you're not making videos anymore unless you've prepared a bunch of AI videos, which I've also been experimenting with. Software called Synthesia. I may have mentioned this on Monday. I've created an avatar, and then you type in the box what you want the avatar to say, and then the avatar says it. And once you render the video and it syncs up really well, the mouth looks pretty believable as it's moving. It's pretty close. And so I've been experimenting with different avatars, trying to decide who I want to be my spokesperson. So who's going to be Dr. Foley's spokesperson? Do I want just somebody that kind of generically looks like me, or do I want somebody completely opposite, which is kind of what I'm trending toward, is somebody who's not me. And so I'm experimenting with that. And I'm going to post one of these videos one of these days. But when we talk about AI, I was talking to you all about ChatGPT on Monday. So I can go into ChatGPT and enter whatever, and then copy that and paste it into the avatar, and then the avatar will say the whole thing. So it's an interesting world we're moving into. All right, well, with regard to cinema, what we need to do today is knock out the syllabus. Probably one of the more boring type events that we're going to have to do in here, but we need to do it. So you know what's in the class and what it's about. It gives me a little chance to discuss everything in a sort of quick fashion. So let's go to the computer here and we'll just jump right into the syllabus and talk a little bit about it. Okay, so where we are here in the class is cinema. We all know we're in the fall of 23. You know me now, Dr. Foley, and you see my email there and the phone number. That's my office line. If you call and leave me a message, the email sends me a message, and then I listen to the voicemail on my cell phone. So if you really have some real long thing that you need to tell me, you don't want to type out in an email, go ahead and leave a voicemail. Otherwise, email is the best. And I always get back to you within 24 hours. Unless you email me Friday afternoon, you're not most likely going to hear from me until Monday. So, but sometimes I respond, but not always, because things are happening. How do we want to do this? Let's just go forward here. The required textbook is Film Art and Introduction, and that's the 12th edition. Let's go to our document cam just for a second, if we may. And we're going to be looking at that in a second, but it's this book here. And it is the 12th edition. Now, my understanding is the bookstore has some on back order, so they're missing some right now. Here's what I'm going to tell you guys. And we come back to me now. Should we find 11th edition for cheaper on Amazon? Grab it. Find the cheap electronic edition? Grab it. The terminology is primarily the same. There are a few different images. Page numbers might be a little bit different than what I say. If I say, look on page so-and-so, the 11th edition might be 1 or 2 pages off, but you'll be able to get by with it. So I leave that up to you. The brand new one, I think it's $100+ to be honest. But I think the 11th edition, you know, because they're old and out of date, are more in the 20, 30 range. So take that advisement as you will. Some people just want a new book. They don't want a book somebody else has marked in and messed with. So that's the book that you're going to need. We can go back to the computer, please. And we're going to do that. And then a film I want everybody to have access to is Casablanca, but I will be showing it in here, so you don't have to go out and rent it or buy it or anything. It's widely available on any of the internet or digital streaming services. We also have reserved copies in the library, and we'll be working with that film as a classic Hollywood film, but also as a film that allows us to really break it down a lot of ways. Sociologically, culturally, from a filmmaking point of view, from the Hollywood tradition point of view, there's a lot of ways we can look at that film. So you need access to it, and there are various streaming services for $3.99. You do have to answer some questions about it in Unit 12, and so you want to have access to it. As I mentioned, I'll be showing most of it in class later on, so you can save those answers till then. Course description. This particular class, Introduction to Cinema. We're not really talking about the history of film as a class. That's a class we hope to have here pretty soon. We're developing just film history. I talk about some film history in here, but it's not our primary focus. We don't do a film started here, and this is what happened in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and so forth. What this is about is teaching you how to watch moving visual media with deeper appreciation. So what you will be able to do once you get through with this course is interpret moving visual media better. Now we're primarily talking about films or movies. So come back to me for a second. Let me give you a couple examples here of things I want you to start thinking about right now. toward the end of, the end of Monday's class, this is something that I've said so many times I can roll it right out, and so I'll try not to go too fast, but I'll be saying it over and over again. And that is the common narrative structure of a Hollywood film. The common Hollywood structure is setting, wherein your main character is placed in a certain environment. Then, once we meet that character, we find out what their issue is in the film, what their problem is, what their conflict is. And if you remember this from high school, human versus human versus self, human versus nature. Once we know what kind of conflict they have, there's a rising series of events that we call the plot. Things happen. That's the plot. The conflict evolves. We get to a high point of the narrative, which typically is toward the end of the film. Most Hollywood films are about 110 minutes long. Now, occasionally there might be a longer one. The Killers of the Flower Moon, I hear, is going to be a little over 3 hours. So, and the one that we just saw about Oppenheimer, that one's 3 hours. You know, when you get in a fast-moving movie, it doesn't seem like 3 hours somehow. But typically a Hollywood film is about 110 minutes. So around about the 95-minute mark, typically, is the climactic point of the narrative, wherein a character has a revelation. They change. From wherever they were at the beginning, whatever the problem was, they change at that climactic moment. Or the problem is resolved. The answer or conclusion to whatever the problem was that evolved through the plot. Maybe it's a murder, or who did it, or some problem that needs to be solved. Good versus evil, whatever the narrative is. Once that character has a primary revelation or a primary change, then we see our falling action. We're going to go downhill at that point. And right in there is where we might see a twist. One of my favorite twists, well, there's several. One I really like is in the animated feature Frozen. It's a great twist at the end. Sometimes I show that because you think you got it all figured out, and then it goes a different direction, right? And that's the twist. Then we have our conclusion at the end. So that narrative structure, once you understand it and you're watching a Hollywood film, you can go, okay, I'm in the setting part. Oh, there's our main character. Oh, here's their opposition. Another person, nature, a zombie, whatever it is. And then we start to see these events. And then we realize that any character is going to have ups and downs. Everything's good at the beginning. They have some challenges. They come out of that, succeed. This is the romantic structure of a romantic comedy, let's say. We used to say, boy meets girl, boy gets girl, boy loses girl. But we've kind of changed that with our different understanding of talking about gender now. So I tend to go person meets person. Person falls in love with person. Person falls out of love with person, or they have some kind of breakup. And then at the end, one or the other of them shows up on the front porch with some flowers and a big sad face and says, I was so wrong about all of that. You were right. And then the other person goes, oh, I'm so glad you came to your senses. Yay, happy ending. So that's the typical romantic comedy. So if you're watching the Hallmark Channel, for example, and that's the way it goes every time. You can just plan on it. And I know people have timed Hallmark movies. Like, okay, we're at the 38-minute mark. This is going to happen. Sure enough, it does. We're at the 56-minute mark. This is going to happen. Sure enough, it does. The stories and characters are a little bit different, but the basic narrative trajectory is the same. So once you understand these things, you can then appreciate when a filmmaker breaks the rules. So something like the movie, it's an older movie, Thelma and Louise, where they fly off the cliff in the car at the end and kill themselves rather than being arrested. Okay, well, that's not the typical Hollywood narrative ending. Saving Private Ryan, where Private Ryan dies. Okay, Citizen Kane, we have our main character dies right at the beginning. So it doesn't always work that way, especially in the Hollywood films, but those are exceptions to the rule. Bigger exceptions are international films, where often the endings are not conclusive because sometimes life is not conclusive. Sometimes we don't get the answer that we want for the tidy ending and explanation to whatever the problem was. And that's kind of how life is sometimes. So that's what I mean, starting to read films. We can look at it in other ways when we talk about cinematography, when we look at camera angles. So, for example, if we'll just pretend this is like a big old movie camera, and if my figure is up here and the camera's looking up at that figure, it invests that figure with power because we're looking up at it. Similar to in a courtroom where the judge sits up above everybody, or a church where the minister, pastor, whatever, is up in some kind of pulpit above everybody. We look up at statues. We look up at things that we admire. We look up at stuff. And so with a low angle, that is telling us that that thing is important. So that's the language of cinema. So when we see a low angle, we know the director is trying to tell us that that figure is important. Similarly, when we use the camera like this and look down at something, it diminishes its significance. So we see this a lot in horror films, where just before somebody's getting ready to get stabbed in the forehead with a knife, we're looking down at them because it minimalizes their significance. If we have a person who has power over another person, we see a high angle looking down at them. So these are elements of the language of cinema. Similarly, if we see an angle, what we call either the Dutch angle or a tilted angle or a canted angle, that means things are awry. Something's wrong because it's not balanced, because we like life balanced. As soon as it's not balanced, let me go this way to stay on frame. I'm watching myself up here on the screen. I'm trying to make sure the camera stays on here because I know there's some people watching at home. So if we're at an angle, we know that that's going to create tension. That also goes back to something we'll look at when we get to that part of the class, the 1920s German expressionists, the earliest horror films that we have, that used angles to express the psychological disquiet that's happening within the characters' minds, specifically the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. And it's not just the camera angles, but it's the mise en scène. It's everything that goes into the frame. And so we'll talk more about that later. So there you have just a few things. Narrative structure is a way to start to watch films and understand what's happening. That narrative structure I mentioned is not just for films, but also for television shows. A 30-minute Simpsons animated show will have the same structure. Setting, you know who the characters are, pretty soon there's a conflict, various stuff happens, there's a climactic moment where somebody has a revelation, they break away, come back for the final joke, and the credits, and that's it. So this is a well-known dramatic structure, and that dramatic structure goes back to the Greeks. So if you study Greek drama, they did the same thing. That's what Shakespeare did. So these are a couple other things that you can start to think about. And that's okay on the camera. Thanks. You can go zoom back in if you want. Thank you. Nice angle there. Good work, Marty, in the technical directing booth back there. Oh, one other thing. This will change how you see everything. We'll talk about symbolism. So universal symbols, cultural symbols. Cultural symbol, several of you are wearing it today, the hill cat. Right? So that's a cultural symbol. That's a symbol of the university. It's the mascot. So that's something we would say is a cultural symbol. A flag of a particular country, that's a cultural symbol. A statue that is of a mythical or generic figure, like the Statue of Liberty, that would be a cultural symbol. But a universal symbol is something that goes across all cultures, no matter what. And there are a few of those. One of which, and one of my favorite ones, is because you'll never unsee this, is water as a universal symbol of change. Because we think of water as something that changes things. The spring rains bring the vegetation, and religiously, the concept of water providing a renewal for you, whichever way you go, submerging, being sprinkled on, however it is. So water has this quality of representing change. So 96% of the time, and that's my own made up number, when you see water in any dramatic narrative, film, or a television show. It signifies that change is happening at that moment. It might be rain, it might be a lake, a river, it might be a glass of water, it might be sweat, it could be any number of things. But next time you're watching any kind of story and you see any of those things, water, a rain puddle, any of that, you know that something significant is getting ready to change in that story. First film we will work with is called Whale Rider, is the name of it. Anybody seen it? Good. Awesome. It's an older film, but I like working with it. It has a lot of water in it. It opens with water. I was thinking about that because when I saw Oppenheimer, it opens with water. If you've seen it, the very first thing you see is water sprinkling in a pond. So that tells you instantly, if you know how to read cinema, change is happening at that moment. Then we learn later that that moment where that rain happened is very significant with regard to the dramatic narrative change that's going on. There's a moment where Oppenheimer is talking to Einstein, and that's where we see that moment again, because they focus on a shot of the water because Einstein's at this pond, and then Oppenheimer goes to see him, and then when they have this dramatic moment, that's when you see that rain sprinkling in the pond. So you realize if you think about it all the way back to the beginning again, that the first shot we see is not just a symbol of change, but it's also symbolic of this moment of recognition between Oppenheimer and Einstein, which you don't get till later. And frankly, most people would forget the very first shot of the film. After 3 hours, typically you don't remember the first thing you see, unless you've had a class like this where you're paying attention to these things. I've had several students tell me, I had one today, tell me who's working one of the booths there for a company, because I said, yeah, I'm getting ready to go do cinema. He goes, oh, I love that class. That was great. I'm glad you're still doing it. And I've heard that. I've also heard that was the worst class I ever had. Well, why would that be? Because you can't just like sit and stare at a movie and not think about it anymore. Because now every time from this point forward, when water happens in a dramatic narrative, you're going to go, I know something's going to change, and your movie watching companion will be, shut up, will you? Because now you're going to have all this new critical information. Look, it's a low angle shot. That invests that figure with power. Look, it's a candid angle. Wait, there's a off-centered line in the background. That means the character is out of sorts mentally. So it's always interesting on that. I've had more people tell me they've liked it forever than didn't like it. But I have had a few people say, I wish I hadn't taken that class. It was good, you're a good teacher and all that, but it messed up movies for the rest of my life. Thank you, Dr. Foley. I will tell you this though, I had another really nice interaction with a student. One of the things I really like about going to Big Tents Day, which I'm going to call it, is there are a lot of former students out there, and they now have jobs and now representing companies, and they're now talking about their company. And then I was thinking, because I also teach Intro to Speech, and I'm working in Pryor for that, our Pryor campus, and I'm working with 20 high school students, and it's interesting to work with the high school kids, but talking to them about speech and why speech is important, because you all have to take it, and some people are anxious about it, no, I don't want to give a speech, and no, I'm shy, and all that. But I was listening to these students out here talking about their companies. That's what speech is for. So you will be confident going out representing your business, being able to talk to people about your business, about what you're doing. And some of them out there, man, they just have it all down and fire it all off, and they repeat it over and over. Others, their speech is peppered with because that's a verbal crutch. You feel like you have to fill the space with your And once you get good at speaking, you really consciously keep those out of your talking. We need to be comfortable with the natural pauses in speech instead of saying, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Huh? Or whatever. Just try and have a clean delivery and let the pauses fall where they may. We speak with pauses. That's how it is. And so it's interesting to see some of the older people who probably didn't go to speech or haven't had it in a long time peppering their pitches for their table with a lot of uhs, and then our students, the younger people, firing it off with very few uhs, if any. So, I don't know, why did we go that way? I'm not sure. Former student speech, what else I'm teaching, why that was refreshing. Oh, I know what it was. One of the students, my former student from 25 years ago, I've been here since 1996. Okay, I know that's longer than most of you guys have actually been on the planet, right? So in that time, I've had quite a few students. And over the years, I've taught quite a few classes because I have a varying skill set and knowledge base and academic training. And sometimes it's just a need that for whatever reason, a teacher can't make it, or they resign, or they take another job, and all of a sudden there's a class with students in it. Who's going to do it? Oh, you had a class in so-and-so when you were in graduate school? You're in. So because I have a PhD in English literature, I taught a world lit class. And this was back in, the student was telling me, she said, I think it was 25 years ago, like 1998, before I had a PhD. I still just had a master's degree. And she said, your class was life-changing for me. And I said, well, why? And she started to tear up a little bit. And she said, because I'd been on one track, my whole life spiritually. And we took a world lit class, and you talked to me about the difference, or you talked to the class in world literature about the different biblical texts that exist. That there's a Greek Orthodox Bible that has more books in it than the King James Bible does. And that depending on the translation you get, the Bible says different things. And I never knew that. And once I started to explore that, it didn't limit her world spiritually, it opened it up. It made it even more vast. And she said, thank you for that. It changed my life. It really made me feel good. All these years ago, I would never even think of that happened. And it's been so long since I taught World Lit, I didn't really even remember doing that, to be honest. So you don't know the impact that you have on people, especially when you're in a teacher role and you're presenting people with new information they hadn't gotten. I was asking these high school students questions yesterday, and they were just looking at me like deer in the headlights. But by the end of the class, they were all pretty good. It's going to be good to work with them. But that's another realm. I think you'll learn things in here that you really will use for the rest of your career as a person. Okay, so let's go back to our screen. So I'll bring up film theory. I'll bring up history of cinema. You can't not do that. German Expressionism in the 1930s, the horror films that come out of there creates the primary moment where cinematic horror language emerges. And so we want to understand that. We can't if we don't understand a little about the history. But also the common elements of commercial and artistic films. What's in basically all movies? Well, all movies have cinematography. Most movies have sound. Most movies have some kind of narrative of some type or another. Most movies have some kind of artistic design. Most movies are edited. So there's some common elements that we can look at. Along with getting all this basic terminology down, we will get you to do some analytical skills in writing about films. Now with ChatGPT, I don't know how this is going to go. If it were me, I'd want to also be able to write without ChatGPT, but it looks like ChatGPT is here to stay. So it's here to help you and be an assistant. So what I would do is enter prompts in ChatGPT and then massage them for your own purposes and needs. And if there's a fact introduced or there's a source introduced, I'd check it and make sure it really exists before you turn it in. Because your professors are smart, they know their field, and typically we used to be able to tell if something was BS or not. It's harder now. So is it really on us to be the BS police, or is it on you to do the best work you can so you can improve as a writer, student, and thinker? And that's really where I think we are. It's kind of up to you. What do you want to do? Skate through easy, use ChatGPT, drop the answers in there, get the credit, and move on. Or think about it, write your own answer, put it in there, get the points for it, and move on. Because we're working on our brains here, developing them. And so I'm pretty focused on all of those things. Your evaluation should grow in depth as you learn more about camera, scene construction, editing, sound, lighting, elements of meaning, narrative technique, and the business of the motion picture industry. We want to elevate your appreciation for motion pictures and enhance your expressive, communicative, and critical skills through writing about films. So, without doing the course outline, let's see, our clock's not working. Where are we doing? 12:35, 15 minutes. A little under 15 minutes. You guys are going to make it. Be right back out there to Big Tents Day for some free food here pretty soon. Let's go on down to our assessment tools. So this is where it gets tricky today. We have your journal entries. Every unit has a journal entry in the course, and I can show this to you here in a second. And there's a question, and you answer the question, and you get journal points for it. What I often say, I look at most of these, but I'll tell you, once I've read like 75 of the same answer, it's interesting to see if the wording is exactly the same. I kind of make a little note on that. Okay, here's 3 students that are saying exactly the same thing. Does that mean they're all in the same student club and they're all making the same answers? Are they all athletes and sharing answers on the bus? Or are they just friends who are working together? I don't know. Let's keep track of these students and see if they are actually doing their own work. And we get you'll see a little red check on your journal entry. You should in your grade book. It tells you if you really did your work, or if it matches somebody else's too closely in the course, and things like that. So I don't go too far on that. You can use any film of your choice to answer a journal question, and you can also use the same film for multiple journal questions if the film applies to more than one. You'll also do an essay. You have to write a 1,000-word film explication essay where you use 25 terms from the course. Camera angles, editing, color, mise-en-scène, narrative, actors, costuming, whatever it is. And you're going to show how those terms function in the film. I haven't quite figured out how you would do that in ChatGPT yet, so I think that one you're almost going to have to do. You have to put the terms in bold, you have to put them in the context of the sentence. So I think that one's one you're just going to have to old-fashioned answer, do on your own. You would use the following terms that we'll be going through: setting, plot, conflict, character change, camera angles, all the different ones: wide shot, medium shot, close-up, high angle, low angle, handheld or fixed camera. We'll be going through all of these things. There you see universal symbols, cultural symbols, and you're supposed to put the term in bold. That way I can go through, and when I read all these essays, because I have 2 other classes, so let's say I've got 75 of them, I'm really looking for bold words, and I'm counting. I'm like, okay, do they have 25? Yeah, I know what that means, I know what that means, I know what that means. So, I wonder if ChatGPT could do that. Put the terms in bold. I'm going to try that later. Oh, let's try it now. In this new world. Well, we have 12 minutes left. Let's go, that's openai.com. Let's see if it just lets me log in with, oh, it just let me right back there again. Internet's working kind of slow today. Let's go write a 1,000-word essay about a film using 25 cinematic terms. Put the cinematic terms used in bold face print. See what happens. Dang it! Okay, thank you, Marty. So now what? We're in a new world, y'all. Whatever you thought was true last year is not true anymore. There's your essay. And it looks like it's pretty good. So far it gets an A. And they're in bold. And I bet if I went through and counted them, there'd be 25. What do you bet?
Looks like it might be repeating.
Yeah, let's say it's repeating.
Okay. And then we just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. There's more. It just keeps on going.
So
Oh,
bonus points.
yeah, well, no bonus points. You know, we give you 200 points for an essay you didn't write. Okay, well, So now what? I don't know. I'm just rolling along with it because this is how we've done it for years. Now all of a sudden I don't really quite know what to do. What do you do? How about this? How about you put an essay in and then I copy it and paste it in and say, please critique this essay. And then we'll see how it critiques it. So now we've got the student entering the essay that was written by ChatGPT, and then the teacher providing feedback generated by ChatGPT. So who's really doing the work here? That's a different, we're in a different place now, all right? So, but I'll tell you, and I told the high school kids this yesterday, not one of them heard of it. I said, you guys, when you get back to Locust Grove, Pryor, Veneta, Adair, wherever you came from, ask your history or English or somebody about ChatGPT and see what they say. I'm hoping they get a shocked expression on their face. Because once you know about this, it changes your dynamic. What we want to say is it doesn't do it for you, it's your assistant. But in reality, it does do it for you. But you want to use it for your good purposes. All right, well, there it is. I do have an alternate assignment, and that's making a short film. Should incorporate 25 cinematic terms, meaning you're going to use different camera angles. A character has to experience conflict, change, or resolution, and it's not going to be burned to DVD anymore. You're going to upload it. So that's, speaking of times changing, that's way over with. I'm surprised that's still in there. I do have a couple other things I could tell you about, but let's just get through the rest of it. Here's our course timeline. That's all fine, just the dates. 1 unit a week. Your film journals, your quizzes, your midterm, film essay, and final. All that up to your grade. This is all the technical jargon we have to put at the end of a syllabus. Academic misconduct. You're supposed to do your own work, but nowhere in the academic manual does it say one word about ChatGPT, because it didn't exist, and people don't know what to do. Plagiarism statement. Well, that's representing somebody else's work as your own, which you certainly would want to do. But there's a question about ChatGPT. If you put the prompt in, do you then own what it spits out? Because it wouldn't have spat it out if you hadn't put it in there. What's the database that it's using to draw that material from? Is that the copyright, the original intellectual copyright source? We don't know. It's just a very strange world right now. What I look out is, what's that?
There's no rules yet.
Well, no, and that's the problem. Americans with Disabilities Act, that is, you have already filed some paperwork, if you need longer on a test or whatever, that's everything. Attendance policy, guess what? I don't have one. And it's up to you to come to class and keep track of the material, and do the work. If you have a family trip you have to take, you have to leave early, you have to whatever, you have a doctor's appointment, you'd rather be at Big Tents Day, whatever it is, just go do that. And then do your work. It's college. It's not high school, and I'm not here to hold your hand through the class. I'm here to help you, do the best I can, but it's up to you to do the work. So that's, I think, one of the key things about college is the responsibility factor. You can come back to me, Marty, if you would, before I look at the book here. How are we doing? I can talk about this for a second. All right, 7 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes? Well, why does my clock say 7? Oh, because we quit at 49. But really, it's more like 5 and 9 seconds is where we are, right? Okay. So let's flip to our document camera. I'm just giving Marty a hard time back there. Here's what we're doing. First, we're going to jump right into film form and narrative form, how films are structured around a story. Once we get through that, we'll look at mise en scène, which is everything in the frame that provides meaning. Subsequent to that, we'll look at the aspects of cinematography, angles, proximities. Proximities means closeness, close-up, medium shot, wide shot, long shot, extreme close-up, all that. Then we'll look at how shots are joined together through editing and how editing impacts the way we interpret film. We'll look at how sound impacts the way we interpret film. If music is in a major key, it tends to be a happy moment. Music's in a minor key, often is a sad, dramatic, or tense moment. So, two people fall in love, major key, happy music. They have a big fight, break up, minor key, sad music. They get back together, major key, happy music again. It may not be exactly that simple, but it's close to that. So we get manipulated by music and its tonalities. We also get impacted by its volume. The theater where I saw Oppenheimer had a big speaker right in the center, cranked up. When those bombs went off, it was like it hit me in the chest practically. So that's another aspect of sound. And then we get back to style and film form. That's the end of the first half of the semester. That's where we have our midterm. Second half of the semester, we do genres. Horror, I think I focus on it. Usually happens right around Halloween, so it works out. And then we'll look at these three: documentary, experimental, and animated. Then we'll start talking a little bit more about film criticism. That's where Casablanca comes in, a little bit of film history. And we try and look at things in the same way we look at literature. We can flip back to me, if you would, Marty. And that is, we can always look at a work of art from multiple points of view. We can look at it historically, the context in which it was produced, historically, what time period, or we look at who made it and what their deal was. We can also look at any film as a star vehicle. There's somebody in it, that's famous. It's really more important about the person than sometimes it is even the story, because some people go to see a film if a person is in it, no matter what. We can look at things sociologically, so we can look at race, age, gender, all these parts of the fabric of society that allow us to interpret a work of art. And so similar to a piece of music, most people listen to music, that would truly be a universal language. Every piece of music has what we would call a pulse, because sometimes there's not a beat present. A pulse could just be in the strings or something like that. Every piece of music, no matter what, has a tune, a melody of some type. Every piece of music has a timbre, meaning a tone. Harsh, aggressive, soft, peaceful, something like that. Every piece of music has texture, meaning how all of the elements of the piece of music add up to one. And then every piece of music has a context, the reason, purpose, or time for which or in which it was produced. If we take a look at those 5 things, we can analyze any piece of music. In the same way, if we take a film and we look at narrative construction, cinematography, mise en scène, editing, and look at theme or meaning, it doesn't matter what film it is. They're all going to have those same components. So that's kind of where we're going. With regard to personal responsibility and discipline, I have a long talk I usually do on testing, and I'll save the longer version of it, because I only have about a minute, right? Left, 1 minute. Says the man with the cards back there. I did an experiment one year. I'll see if I can get this in a minute. I gave everybody all the questions, and I got a bell curve. Same number of C's, B's, and A's. Then I gave everybody all the answers the next year. I still got a bell curve. Same C's, B's, and A's. Then I didn't give anybody anything. No answers, no questions. I just talked to them about the test, did a review. I still get the same bell curve, C's, B's, and A's. So what does it tell you over a 3-year period where I give students the answers, I give them the questions, and then I don't give them anything, and I still get the same results? Some students are going to work hard, and some are going to study, and some are going to make a good grade, and some are not. It's just the way it shakes down, no matter what you do. And I have the numbers to back all that up. So that personal responsibility is on y'all to do the work and be responsible for that. 7 seconds left. Friday we'll be here. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. A little bit of experimental Friday. So we'll see you then. If not, we'll see you on Monday.